Hey fam, welcome to Life More Abundantly, the podcast where we talk Black health like we talk everything else, real, out loud, and with love. I'm Dr. Eboni Haynes.
And I'm Dr. Tynisha Camae Drennon.
We've got a lot to talk about today, so let's do it.
Let's get into today's episode.
All right, T. So I'm sure you have heard by now about this situation where folks are upset because Naomi Osaka and Taylor Townsend decided to host a dinner party.
I already know it's because certain people were not invited to the cookout.
Oh my gosh, y'all. So this is what happened. Recently, this week, there was a dinner party called the Black Party, the Roland Garros edition at Soho House, Paris. So the French Open was held in Paris this past week, and some Black tennis players decided to get together to eat dinner, right? So of course,
maybe they didn't want escargot. Maybe they wanted
fried chicken.
I'm just saying, it's hard to find chicken in Paris. I don't know why, but maybe they had some flown in with them, and it wasn't enough for everybody.
So Osaka describes this event as a way to foster community and fellowship in a sport, tennis, that is incredibly devoid of Black athletes.
Right.
And, she is a very outspoken individual when it comes to all things mental health and protecting her peace and all of that. And so it shouldn't come as a surprise that she wanted to have a dinner party with folks who she could relate to, folks who look like her, because she knows that tennis can be incredibly isolating.
And I also think that she probably wanted to hold a dinner like this so that she could, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, take the mask off and kind of decompress and let her guard down.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And so, of course, once the pictures from the party surfaced, then certain folks were upset.
And this is why when we go to the party, we be like, put your phones away. Stop posting stuff on social media. We say it amongst ourselves, don't post that.
Facts, for this very reason.
For this very reason. So when this picture came out, people ended up calling her racist and saying it was exclusionary, like that all white parties can't exist. Well, so why can't all Black parties exist? How many times we got to tell otherness that y'all have these parties all the time.
All the
And
time.
we're not on the list. And
Right?
you don't call them all white parties, but somehow our invite gets lost in the mail. And guess what they become?
Now we racist.
Now we racist because we just trying to have our 10, 12 people at the table.
Right. Well, we don't have to explain certain things.
Right. Where we don't have to code switch, where we don't have to have our words misconstrued, where
That's
nobody is asking us, what does "ya" mean actually mean?
That part. But Osaka, like she does, she clapped back and she challenged her critics by asking them, well, what is it about people of color getting together that unsettles you so much?
Right.
What is it?
Yeah. I think they just don't like us to have a good time without them. They think we over here trading espionage secrets, giving each other pro tips on how to win against one. Like, they probably didn't even talk about tennis.
Probably not. But you know what? I think about Maya Angelou's Phenomenal Woman, right? Is it in the reach of my arms? Is it the span of my hips? Is it the stride in my step, the curl of my lips, right?
Oh.
So maybe it's that. Maybe it's like, they don't want all that greatness in one place.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I definitely think it's about all of that greatness in one place. Again, I think it's, they feel like they need to be keeping a watch on us because God forbid we should come together and plan our freedom.
That part. Oh, they don't want another Nat Turner
I
rebellion.
don't want to.
We need an overseer. Everywhere we are, we gotta have an overseer.
Because if they in there by themselves, next thing I know, they gonna say, "Give us freedom." That's what it's
Ooh,
really about. They just so afraid that we are going to do something more great if they are not present, as if our greatness in and of itself. I mean, that's what this really is about. That all of
yeah,
these great, phenomenal Black people in one room, the cream de la
yeah,
creme of the Black community, especially in tennis. How dare they? How dare they not
right.
invite us?
Yeah. Well, she says she was not going to apologize, and she's absolutely right. She didn't have anything to apologize for. And, if other folks can't understand the desire to celebrate greatness, to celebrate Blackness, then you know what? That's on them. We don't need to apologize for wanting to be in spaces with folks who relate to us, who look like us, who give a damn about us at the end of the day. So,
Agree. And, the fact that we always have to explain ourselves as well. I wonder what would have been like if she didn't even address it at all.
mhm,
I'm sure it would have made people even angrier, but I just feel like we always have to give an account of ourselves. They don't give an account of
right.
themselves. They do what
Yep.
they want to do, and they just move through life completely
Mhm.
unbothered if it upsets us or not. And so I
Mhm.
love Osaka's response, but I'm so tired of us always having to explain why we move the way that we move.
Yeah. And truth be told, you know what? If we didn't have these spaces where we could come together and do all the things, commiserate, boost each other up, strategize, like how we going to get through this very racist world, especially the one that we're dealing with right here in the US in this moment in time with this administration. Y'all might need to be worried for real, for real. If it wasn't for folks being there to support each other and figure out how we can exist and
Right.
support each other despite all the craziness, who knows?
Exactly. That's so true.
Hmm.
And maybe you all weren't invited because you don't want to hear us call y'all crackers no more than we want to hear y'all call us niggas. So I digress.
And then there's that. Whew, all right. Well, since we're on the topic of sports,
Yeah,
did you hear about the NAACP's latest initiative?
I did. So the NAACP is out here asking for Black athletes to boycott. What's it called? The SEC? What?
The
What?
SEC,
Help us
NACC
these
conferences.
acronyms because I don't ICC any of it. Okay,
All
this
right. So
one.
since I'm the resident sports fan in the room, all right. So here it is. So the SEC is the Southeastern Conference. The ACC is the Atlantic Coast Conference. NAACP, I think, is, oh, wait a minute. They don't like being called NAACP anymore.
No, what did you
The
call?
NAACP, my apologies.
Why can't it be double A? Who voted on this? That's what when I seen the award show a couple months ago, I was like, why we can't say N double A? Are we not allowed to say MISSI double P? What?
Look.
We got bigger fish to
We
fry.
got bigger fish to fry. Yes. Okay. So the NAACP says that we need to boycott the SEC and the ACC primarily because those two conferences, by and large, have what they see as the majority of the D1, the Division One, predominantly white institutions in the South.
Okay, let me ask you, there any HBCUs part of the Division One?
So, yes, there are some HBCUs who are considered Division One schools. However, those schools exist primarily in the MEAC and the SWAC conferences. Okay, so they don't tend to see any of these white Division One schools unless they make it through the championships for their conferences, and then they go on to the NCAA tournaments. And usually they are out by like the first or second rounds because, they're just not as equipped to tackle some of these larger D1 schools, more well resourced D1 schools. But every now and then there's a school who makes it. So the NAACP is basically saying, we want you athletes to boycott these D1 schools in the ACC and the SEC as a way to protest what's happening in these southern states as it relates to redistricting that has happened because of this recent Supreme Court decision. And a lot of people are reacting to this call for this boycott. The biggest challenge is that I think the timing of it is horrible, primarily because we're at the end of the academic year. And so now you're telling Black athletes, these high schoolers in particular, who are getting ready to go to these D1 schools, don't go. Instead, go to an HBCU. But because we're at the end of the academic year and the transfer portal has closed, that means that these students would be SOL this year coming up. And they wouldn't really be able to make any real good decisions about whether they're going to be engaged in sports at one of these schools until the next academic year. So some people are saying, NAACP, your timing is horrible. Like, it's not even realistic for you to do this right now in this moment. So that's one challenge.
Right. So they're saying that targeted states include Tennessee, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, South Carolina, Texas, and Georgia. And part of the reason they're requesting this is that athletic programs in these states generate more than $100 million
Mm-hmm.
annual revenue by their
Right.
state governments. Allegedly, nah, I don't even know if it's alleged, but dismantle Black political power. And, they're saying that they're doing this to put pressure to adopt state level voting rights protections, repeal gerrymandering maps, and restore congressional districts. The central
Mm-hmm.
slogan of the campaign is no representation, no recruitment, no revenue. Once again, can somebody please put me on the poll when y'all deciding what we going to boycott? Because we cannot boycott all the things at the same time. What I think is unfair about this is that, I mean, in addition to what you're saying, it's the last minute, but also this is not the NFL or the NBA where you're asking them to, take a pause
Mm-hmm.
games, take a penalty, and they already got their millions. Now
Mm-hmm.
potentially affecting the futures of these young men and women educationally, because a lot of them are
Mm-hmm.
getting their academic degrees based on these scholarships, but also financially. And you
Mm-hmm.
talked about how protests and standing up is uncomfortable and it's inconvenient, but this is more than an inconvenience or, being uncomfortable. This could be life shattering.
Oh, absolutely.
The potential of the people that they are calling for to do this. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'm not sure the rationale behind this because, yes, something needs to be done. I'm just not sure. I mean, I get it that the Black athlete, so the NAACP is saying, and I mean, I guess I'm willing to agree with it if I think about it in abstract terms, is the most valuable, for lack of a better word, commodity to the United States, right?
Mm-hmm. Since slavery is
In
now
slavery.
abolished.
Right, since slavery is abolished, we have the Black athlete or the Black criminal, and so there's this mindset that you're either gonna be a Black athlete, a Black criminal, or dead, and because of that, I think that, to me, assessing or realigning how our HBCUs could enter into Division One areas, questioning why we have no Division One schools or very little, why, that whole conversation might be more beneficial than calling for this particular type of boycott. I don't know. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the whole conversation is one that the NAACP got into without all of the information. I think it was a knee-jerk reaction to what's going on in the southern states with redistricting, and I don't think that they really pulled all the players that needed to be at the table in so that they could talk about this in very real terms. Now, I am all for HBCUs. I went to an HBCU. Both my parents went to HBCUs. I've given a lot of time, money, and talent to HBCUs. So I love HBCUs. And the NAACP of all organizations should also have realized that while in theory,
Mhm.
it makes sense to say Black athletes should go to HBCUs.
Mhm.
The reality is that HBCUs are not in a position to be able to support these athletes. They
Wh
don't
why?
have,
I think we should ask that question.
well, I mean, there are lots of reasons why.
I know it's not an overnight fix, but we should be working towards that. Like, at what point, right? If we saying let's be,
About HBCUs,
yeah,
let's be about HBCUs, absolutely. And that's not to say that the NAACP has not in the past done things to support HBCUs. That's not what I'm saying at all. But in terms of really standing 10 toes down and rallying everybody together and coming up with a real strategy to make sure that HBCUs are viable and can be the solution to our problems, they have not done that.
right,
They have not. And so to now say we should send all the Black kids, all the Black athletes to HBCUs is it's ill advised.
yeah,
So you have HBCUs that cannot support all of these athletes, right? We're talking about athletes who are going to be going to these Division One, predominantly white institutions, primarily on a full scholarship. Many of them are going to be eligible for NIL deals.
mhm,
Most of our HBCUs are not in a position to be able to even get in the NIL conversation. They don't have facilities, they don't have the same level of donors, and they typically have not been able to recruit. And some people may argue with this, and I think they would have some valid points, but a lot of times HBCUs have not been able to recruit the same level of athletes to come to their schools that the PWIs can recruit. And part of that is just because the programs are not programs that are getting scouts' attention. You don't have a whole bunch of Black kids who are being recruited to the NFL or the NBA from HBCUs. And that's not to say HBCUs don't have talent. It's just to say they don't have the resources. If you give an HBCU the same resources as one of these D1 Southern SEC or ACC schools, then an HBCU is going to produce athletes that are going to be able to easily get into the NBA and the NFL,
and I think
right?
that is the greater issue for
Correct.
me. That is the greater issue because if the majority of the talent is coming from Black and brown communities, but we don't have an option to send that talent to Black schools, that is a systemic change that we should be fighting for.
Absolutely. We should have been fighting for this for a long time,
Right.
right? And that's not to say that those conversations haven't been happening. You know, I got lots of thoughts on that. We could have a whole episode on the state of HBCUs right now. However, the NAACP, I think, is just very misguided right now in suggesting that this is your key pillar
Yeah.
of this proposal.
Yeah.
And it also does not acknowledge the fact that HBCUs have significant challenges
Right.
that extend beyond sports.
Right.
And so now you're talking about sending a kid to a school potentially where they're going to experience challenges that they never would experience at a PWI. Will their community be there? Yes. Will their culture be there at an HBCU? Yes. But they're also going to experience some stuff that, let's just be honest, they're likely not going to experience at a PWI. And so you have to weigh all of those things before just blanketly telling parents to send their kids to an HBCU.
Right. And I'm also not getting the exact correlation between, okay, yeah, the sports industry is going to hurt. Yes, the monetization of the sports industry is going to hurt. How exactly is that going to make them realign the districts?
That part, right? I mean, I guess what their premise is that if you have these SEC schools who bring in billions of
Mhm.
dollars, the ACC schools who bring in
Right.
billions of dollars, then it is going to hurt those states because those schools, especially those state schools, generate a lot of revenue from
Mhm.
sports. And so if you don't have those Black bodies out on the football field, if you don't have those Black bodies on the basketball court, then the teams are not going to be as good.
Right.
Ticket sales are not going to be through the roof like they currently are. And their thinking is that white folks love sports.
Right.
And so if you take away their sports, then they're going to want you to do something about it. This is the rub for me. And you mentioned it earlier. The rub for me is that you want these college students and their parents to make this decision. And they might be foregoing their first year of college. They may be, transferring to a school where they will never have a hope of getting into a professional league, right? Yet, when Colin Kaepernick took his knee,
Mm,
nobody called for this wholesale boycott of the NFL.
mhm.
People weren't saying stop buying NFL tickets, stop buying merchandise, stop paying that subscription on your cable plan for all of the NFL channels and that kind of thing.
Well, we did
Nope.
boycott the Super Bowl for 1 year.
Nobody was doing the thing that would have made the real difference when Colin Kaepernick took his knee.
Mhm.
Nobody. These
Yeah,
grown men. These are grown men who've made millions of dollars
right.
for the
Guaranteed
NFL.
money. Guaranteed money too.
Guaranteed money, right? Nobody asked them all. And now we're talking about, a whole lot of athletes, black athletes in the NFL. Nobody asked them to do that.
Right.
Many of them have their education or they have the resources now. If they want to go back to school and get their education, they can. Many of them have other businesses.
Yeah.
They have the resources now where if you ask them to boycott the NFL, guess what? That's going to bring some stuff to a halt. That's going to change some hearts and minds. That's going to get people rethinking some things. But even now, we're not asking the NFL to do anything.
Right. Well, we did boycott the Super Bowl for 1 year.
And guess what happened?
We went right back.
Black folks especially.
Yeah.
And black folks, they were the ones who were most impacted by it.
Yeah.
And they didn't even stop. They
Mm.
didn't stop watching football. They didn't stop buying jerseys. They didn't stop buying tickets. They didn't call on the owners to do anything differently, right? They didn't do it. And it was something that was impacting him. And Colin Kaepernick still doesn't have a job in the league
Still doesn't. We don't
to
even
this
see him as
day.
a sports commentator. Like, where is Colin?
Right. And all he did was silently take a knee.
A silent protest. He didn't even ask nobody else do it with me. He was out there minding his own business. Like, this is what I'm gonna do for my moral compass.
Right. And black folks wouldn't even stand up for him.
Right.
Black folks, grown black folks wouldn't even stand up for him. So now y'all want high school graduates and college kids to get involved in some political
Yeah.
posturing
Right.
on behalf of who?
These kids barely understand what's happening. I had to explain to a 30-year-old what gerrymandering was, and not just the term itself, because at first I was like, what does that mean? But I understood that they were trying to redistrict. And so, yes, you're asking them that it's unrealistic. It's unrealistic.
And I will say this. Maybe the NAACP is saying, okay, well, this worked in 2015. Because in 2015, some athletes at the University of Missouri protested. And the black football players said, we're not playing unless our demands are met. And maybe even the NAACP thought that, in the 1960s, when the black high school talent, decided that they were going to boycott, it made a difference. I don't know, but we ain't in 2015 and we doggone sure ain't in the 1960s, although some folks would love to take black folks back to 1860.
I think that this may maybe have been more effective if the season had started and then they were asking for black athletes across the board to boycott and say we're not stepping onto the court.
Maybe, but we saw that happen a couple years ago where there was this rumor that the Florida State athletes were planning to boycott because they didn't like a decision that had been made. But by and large, the black athletes are the ones that have everything to lose.
Yeah.
They have
Well,
everything to lose.
do they have everything to lose if they're already signed? Because, like, who you going to replace them with?
Well, trust me, they got some, not as good talent in the wings. Let's be real. I'm telling you, music, that's all black folks.
Mm-hmm.
Athletics, that's all black folks. Art, that's all black folks. Like, no matter how much people try to denigrate us and tell us that we're less than or that our creativity is mediocre or inferior. Come on now.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we're all like, nah, we're not doing it until these demands are met. That's what I'm saying. Who they gonna get? They gonna get they gonna get the others? Because if they not that they couldn't get the others, but if the others were as great as we are, they wouldn't need us.
They wouldn't need us. Exactly.
I'm saying when you say like we're the only ones that have everything to lose, well, if every which is the hard part is getting everybody on board
Which will never
collectively,
happen.
which unfortunately
Which will never happen.
not gonna happen. Somebody gonna be yelling, Master Django is coming. Oh wait.
That part.
But in an ideal scenario, they have more to lose than we do in the grand sense. Like if all of us say we're not doing it, then who else they gonna get?
Yeah. But you know what? I think they would be more than happy to say, you know what? All right, that's even better for us. That means that our folks get to get the shine, get the money. Black folks can be on their merry way because they would love to send us on our merry way as it is now. So why not?
All right. Well, as we get off this whole episode, just gonna make y'all mad. We should have said that disclaimer up front.
Right.
Like,
Right. Because
that
we was
sauce,
mad putting it together.
cocktail, whatever you need. So back to they want to be all up in our business and whatnot. There was a lawsuit against a platform called Find a Black Doctor, which I didn't even know that existed, but that's kind of cool. Okay, so Dr. Travis Morrell, a white double board certified dermatologist, we out here all his credentials. Okay, we're a doctor, we got it. You're a dermatologist, okay, of all things. From Colorado and the conservative medical nonprofit Do No Harm filed a lawsuit on May 19, 2026, alleging that the directory violates federal civil rights, especially or specifically, I'm laughing because you can't make this stuff up. Civil Rights Act of 1866, which is about excluding non-Black physicians. So you don't want us to have civil rights, but you're going to cite
That part.
civil rights and why you should be a part of this resource for Black people to find a Black physician.
Mhm.
So Dr. Morrill, earned doctorate, argues that he was constructively rejected because he's white after applying to the directory in late 2025 and receiving no response. Let me tell you why you received no response. Okay. The plaintiffs argued that the directory robs non-Black doctors of valuable advertising exposure to
Hmm.
potential patients. It robs you of potential get you a billboard, get you a yellow page ad, like miss me. Okay. Go ahead. I think you just what? Okay. Let me finish. It says, do no harm challenges the concept of racial concordance, the idea that patients have better outcomes with doctors of the same race, calling it a debunked that undermines the doctor-patient relationship. First of all, let me ask Miss Edgar's boy. What? Let's look at all of the statistics where y'all be accusing us of drug seeking when we're in pain. Look
Mhm.
at the Black mortality rate. What?
Right. So I actually really like the fact that they decided that they were going to include this debunked myth in their argument
Oh,
because, my gosh, the lawyer for the defendants is going to eat them alive on that.
right. Who the
There
heck is?
is so much research, peer reviewed research that has shown over and over and over again that when Black people are seen by Black doctors,
Mhm.
Black people have better health outcomes
Yes.
than if they were seeing someone, a provider that didn't look like them. Not only do they have better health outcomes, but it has been shown that there's improved communication between patients and doctors,
Mhm.
there's higher patient trust, and there's better adherence to treatment, including adherence to medications that have been prescribed.
Mhm.
And so we've had several conversations. We've had people on our podcast who talk about the challenges of medication adherence
Right.
in addressing issues, health issues within the Black community. And so why is this a problem again?
Exactly. Exactly. And then you have Karen, well, Keith. Ken, whatever we call it.
Ken.
Ken. We have Ken over here crying when African Americans are 13% of the US population. I think that that number should be way higher. I would be willing to bet money that, if y'all wasn't hiding in the kitchen when they came out to take these surveys, that our numbers would be
Right when the census came through, you
yeah,
know?
but I was one of the census takers, and y'all wouldn't answer the door for me neither. I
Yeah, me
got the
too.
oh. But in all seriousness, that African Americans make up only 4% of practicing physicians. And
Mhm.
so the
Even today.
entire 4% of the population was not included in this directory. I can promise you that. And so
Right.
the limited amount of people that were in this directory to be able to, if that is your source of comfort to find a Black doctor because you're a person of color, like, why are y'all crying about this? Once again, I don't understand why we can't have anything for our
Mhm.
when I go on the
Mhm.
United Healthcare website, I got to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll until
Mhm.
that looked like me. So, or got a Black name. That right. Then I got to guesstimate, and then if it's Rachel Dolezal up there, I,
You ain't never lied about that, and I mean, I'm so bold now when I'm on those websites and I think this doctor might be a brother or a sister, I'll call the office and I'll be like, "Hey, I see Doctor so and so and so is listed on your website. I would be a new patient. Is this Doctor Black?"
mm. And you have the right to do that.
And I have the right to do that. And if they say no, then I have the right to keep on scrolling. But I actually did know about this website. And so many of the Black doctors that I found on this website.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, cool.
Mhm. Now you're gonna have more success finding Black doctors, especially in your more metropolitan areas. That you're lucky in that way. But yeah, it's still a huge resource for people who are looking for folks who look like them.
I don't even know why this is being considered. I don't know why the
'Cause he can. 'Cause he can.
because he can, because of the white caucasity privilege of it all.
Mhm.
And it's like, sir, like, go on Dr. Pimple Popper. Like, isn't that your area of expertise? Stop over here muddying the water.
Like, for real?
You
You
know,
mad 'cause you don't have Black
right.
patients in your dermatology practice? Maybe there's a reason.
Because you don't know how to address melanated issues.
Because you probably haven't studied issues impacting melanated folks. Do you
Right.
care about
Right.
those issues? Have you taken the time to get your CEUs or CMUs,
Whatever they are.
CMEs?
AME, AK. Listen, there's been too many acronyms in this episode, but the point being that you often, and even when physicians pick out their areas of specialties, right? Very seldomly do you hear that they took a specialty or they took a whatever it
Right.
is, continuing education course on African American, whatever it is.
Mhm.
So you're
Mhm.
dermatologist, like you need to look at African American skin or people of color skin
Yep.
differently than non-people of color skin,
Mhm.
right? But you don't want to hear that. Look how long it took us to even get sunscreen that
Right.
appropriately, blends into our
Mhm.
skin and so forth.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that could be one of the reasons in and of itself. And back to the debunked idea, we have not, and yes, I've made a joke about Miss Edgar's boys, but we have not forgotten that the others. I was about to say you, but they probably not listening. Well, they might be because they want to know everything we're doing. But that you have experimented on our body
Mhm.
for
Yep.
years and years and years to get even some of the current medical procedures that you do. You experiment in
Mhm.
our bodies and able to perfect those procedures. And so
Right.
there is also a wariness when we come to you all. And I have white
Mhm.
doctors, but sometimes, I believe in second, third, fourth opinion.
Mhm.
I
Same.
be looking at them like, as much as I want to be like, well, oh, gone are the days. I don't know. I don't know if you got my best interest at heart. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
The other piece of this is that this is not even new. Do you remember, I think it was earlier this year, last month, that lady in California, the white woman sued the California Department of Public Health
Oh
after being
yeah, Dr.
denied
Jimenez.
entry into that
She didn't
Black
know.
infant health program?
Yeah, Dr. Jimenez, because she didn't get the memo that somebody in her family 100% Caucasian. When she showed
Oh
up at
my God.
court. trying to sue because her name is feminist.
Right. It's exhausting. It's
It
exhausting
is.
when white folks or non-Black people want access to the resources that we had to fight hard to even get. And then we had to die because these are programs that started because the inequities were so stark that
Exactly.
something else needed to be done. And so now you're like, no, I want access to that program too. When
Right.
we've got long lines of women who have been dying from birth related complications. Come on now.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that obviously that's a new case, so it hasn't been resolved.
Well, it hasn't resolved
Yeah.
yet because Jimenez states that she alleges that the state of California is violating the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment and part of the Civil Rights Act because she was denied entry into a program based on the fact that she was not Black. So, once again, we're back to y'all keep quoting the civil rights, but the main want to dismantle is civil rights. So
Right.
I'm so confused. If there's no need for civil rights, why are you citing the Civil Rights Act?
Hello. Hello. That part. All
Yeah,
right. Well, we told y'all this was going to be an episode that would make you a little mad.
that part.
Yeah. So we might as well just keep it moving. So this week in Black history.
Hold on, let me go puff me some Crown Royal. 'Cause we on air. Go ahead.
All right. So this week in Black history, on May 25th, 2020, George Floyd, a 46-year-old Black American, was murdered by Derek Chauvin, a 44-year-old white police officer in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I think our listeners are way more familiar with the George Floyd situation than maybe the next piece of Black history that we want to bring up.
Well, it's so interesting that you would say that this is the anniversary of his death, which makes the whole Netflix bros joke
Mm,
that was included even more insensitive
right.
overall, but then the timeliness of it. So his family is already, doing whatever families do when it's the anniversary of the death of their loved ones. And then to have
Mhm.
to have an additional hurt add on to that grief is
Right.
very solid.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, interestingly, 99 years earlier in the same week, the Tulsa Race Massacre occurred. Yeah. And I think this is a story that some of our listeners may not be as familiar with because they're so far removed from it. So let's talk about it a little bit. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, there was a Black business district that was thriving,
Mm.
and it was called the Greenwood District. It was one of the wealthiest Black communities in the United States. And some of you have heard of Black Wall Street. I know some of you in the Atlanta metro area know about the new Black Wall Street that exists here, at least to the end of the month. But it was named after what was the Greenwood District's Black Wall Street.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, it was. So it was organized in 1906, and Greenwood was a model for economic independence. And so Black folks, own their own businesses. They had their own newspapers. They had their own nightclubs, their own movie theaters. It literally was a thriving community. And they even had their own Black doctors.
And their
Their
own
own Black
athletes had dinner amongst themselves.
with the white folks not saying, "I wanna come." Like, "Why you having an all Black dinner?" Right?
Right. They didn't want to eat
Yeah.
what we eat.
But yeah, so they had all of these Black professionals, highly educated Black professionals, but they also had Black service members from World War I who were a part of this community. And then literally all hell breaks loose.
Wow.
So May 31st, there is an incident that happens. So this 19-year-old young man named Dick Rowland, he's a shoe shiner. He has to go to the bathroom, and because he's working in a building that doesn't have a colored only bathroom, he has to go to another building that's a few blocks away, get on the elevator, go up to the fourth floor to get to the closest colored only bathroom
Oh,
to where he is.
that's too much
Okay.
in and of itself.
It is. So then he gets on this elevator, and back then, the elevators didn't operate on their own like they do today, right? You didn't just push a button and the elevator went up. There was an elevator operator. And in this case, there was this white elevator operator named Sarah Page. And as they're going up in this elevator, the elevator jerks. And she claims that in that moment, he attacked her. As soon as the elevator stops, finally gets to the floor and stops, he jets because he already knows
What he's
what's
about
about
to
to
do,
happen.
right?
Yeah. So, sure enough, by the time she makes the claim, 3 o'clock that afternoon, the newspaper is already going to press, printing this story that we have to locate this Negro who has attacked this white woman in this elevator. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, you got these white people in Tulsa who are already like gathering and trying to strategize about how they're going to get this dude. So they set out looking for this guy. Well, what happens? The Black World War I veterans hear about the situation. They already know that this mob is coming. And so they go to the police station. The young man is already there at the police station. They go and they tell the sheriff, look, we'll stand guard because, we don't want anything to happen. They're calling for the lynching of this young man. Now, these men are in their uniforms. They've got their guns, not in a threatening way, but just to say, like, we're here because these are trained individuals, right? Sheriff is like, nope, we good. We good. Nothing's going to happen to this young man. But these white men see these Black military veterans and they get scared.
Wow.
So they go and they round up even more of their boys and they go and get their weapons. And then before you know it, Black Wall Street, the Greenwood district in Tulsa is on fire. And 35 square blocks are burned to the ground.
35.
10,000 people are left homeless. Lots of property damage, which is equivalent to $40 million in today's terms.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because all of this time, I thought the burning of Black Wall Street was about the fact that once again we were meeting by ourselves and we were having prosperity, and white folks didn't
Mhm.
like that, and so they burned it down. But you're telling me this was about something else that kind of continued to escalate.
Yeah, well, I would say that those feelings of, well, wait a minute, like these are educated Black folks and Black folks that have money and veterans who are coming back who are decorated, right? Wait a minute, like they thriving over there. I don't like that. White folks felt like Black folks were not staying in their place.
Mm.
And then this incident involving this young man, Dick Rowland, is the thing that gives them justification for burning down this thriving Black community.
And whatever happened to him?
Who, Dick Rowland? He actually did escape Tulsa. After all of this, he was able to get out of Tulsa, of course, under the cover of night. But yeah,
Wow, but the whole town burned and was never, to this day, it's never been rebuilt.
that is correct because these people, because of rezoning efforts, especially in the area that was burned, that gave the city reason to take that land
Oh, they gerrymandered
and
it.
redevelop. Hey,
Burn.
look, 1921 to 2026. Hey, ain't too much change. Yeah,
Ugh,
yeah.
I told you it was gonna make y'all mad. This is crazy.
And on top of that, they don't want to give the folks who experienced this loss reparations.
And not only just reparations, but they had insurance. Insurance
Yeah.
companies refused to compensate them.
Yep.
I mean, they had
Yep.
massive losses. So, I always feel like insurance is a crock, knock on wood, but we have to, the law requires us to have it, right?
Mm,
But a lot of times they'll deny your claim. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are.
yep.
Certainly, fire
Mhm.
adequate reason. And so it's difficult to recruit financially if you don't have an insurance payout for property
Yeah,
damages.
that's
You've
right.
lost everything. So
Yeah,
people end up actually becoming homeless for
yeah.
this, which is insane to think of, the massive amount of resources that were within that community. It would have been like $40 million today,
Mhm.
which is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but certainly enough for a community to rebuild, right?
Yeah,
And they didn't
for
even receive
sure.
that.
Nope. Many of them had to move away, move to other states, and try to rebuild their lives. But yeah, so that's what happened this week in Black history.
Be black history, as I like to call it.
All right. So what's on the community calendar for today?
Well, as we wrap up Mental Health Awareness Month, I think it's important that we talk about code switching.
Oh, good topic.
So, code switching, or they call it the chameleon effect. Again, I don't know who voted for that because we've been calling it code switching our whole life. It's a strategy used to alter self presentation, including speech, behavior, and sometimes appearance to align with the norms of different social or professional contexts. We know it as we switch up our phone voice.
Uh-huh.
We act one way with Black people and we act another way with
Uh-huh.
white people. Again, including how we dress, how we speak, our natural urban jargon.
Uh-huh.
And the fact that we even call it urban jargon is opposed.
We all know what you mean.
Yeah, right. And so this really comes into effect when we essentially are downplaying our racial identity to proactively avoid negative stereotypes, things
Mhm.
that other people may feel about us. But then I think there's a reverse code switching where sometimes we downplay our education and our articulation
Mhm.
when we are around other Black people to prove our Blackness.
Mhm. That is true. Yeah. One of the things that really I don't think we think about too much is the impact that code switching has on our mental. And so that's why I'm so glad that we're bringing this up as we wrap up Mental Health Awareness Month, because it really can result in what they consider cognitive fatigue and burnout, because you're always trying to keep up with how you have to be around certain groups of people.
Right.
Yeah, and you can't ever let your guard down, because then you don't want people looking at you like, "Wait a minute, but you were a totally different person last week," right? So, like, there is this feeling that you always have to be on, you always have to pretend, you always have to be this different person. You have a whole different persona when you are around certain folks. And I know I'm guilty of saying things like, I'm a chameleon, and being proud of the fact that I can be a chameleon. So when I'm in the boardroom, I can speak a certain way so that I get respect. But then when I'm home with my family, I talk how I talk. And I think that a lot of Black people who have achieved a certain level of success in their lives, all of them at some point have been chameleons.
Exactly. And as you said, it is mentally, right? We're still using the term cognitively, but it's mentally exhausting. I mean,
Mhm.
it is. And this is why it's so necessary for us to retreat. Going back to our top of the show story, it's often necessary for us to retreat amongst ourselves so that
Right.
we can take the mask off and we can just relax, even if it's for a
Mhm.
few moments, have that community because it is, as you said, it's always being on guard and it's also being hyper vigilant and processing information on how you want to respond.
Mhm.
Right. So the first thing that comes to mind is when somebody makes you angry urbanly or instinctively, you might want to be like, you got me effed up.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
have to automatically, do this calculation in your mind. I got kids to feed, I got
Right.
bills.
Got bills
How
to
am I gonna
pay.
say
Right.
this?
I got that vacation
The
plan.
plan, I be having cash out on my PTO, the economy is bad,
Mhm. Right.
and
That
so
part.
that it's just draining to have to present one way,
Mhm.
but instinctively, I think that's the better term, instinctively, we may respond another way. Both responses could be totally appropriate, but given the context
Mhm.
of the scenario, you have to make a decision on how you would choose to present.
Absolutely. And for some people, they consider that, like, the longer you do it, the more at risk you are for identity confusion. And to go even farther than that, I have even seen in people's Black families where, because you present one way at work, and if you dare bring that persona home with you, then your own community might start saying
You act
or start asking, "Why you acting white?" Why are you acting white? And so you then still have this sense of isolation. You feel isolated already in your workplace, for example, because you have to show up differently in your workplace. And then you come home
Right.
and you still are isolated from your own community because they can't understand your need to code switch or that you have a hard time turning it off. So yeah, it's
Exactly. I mean, and right, and both of them can be very confusing, because in an attempt to bring us back down to statue, as you're saying, a lot of our communities, a lot of our family members, a lot of our friends will not only accuse us of trying to act white and be white, but it's also you think you better than me.
mhm,
Speak this way because you wear your hair this way because you do any of
right.
the things. I remember, and it's still a debate, but there was, a few years ago, there was the big debate about not using relaxers
Mhm,
and wearing our hair natural and our color
mhm,
beautiful and all of that, that I 100% agree with. And I
mhm,
was getting a lot of flack because I was still relaxing my hair. And I'm like, what if it's not about me trying to be white, but about the fact that I'm very, very tender headed?
mhm,
I comb my hair, and I don't wanna go through all of that. And
right.
so, having right back to having to explain things we shouldn't have to explain. Like, as
Mhm,
much as you want me to accept you being natural, why can't you accept me wanting to relax my hair and honoring the fact that as a little girl named Tanisha,
mhm.
as a one
Hello.
woman named Tanisha,
Mhm.
never a moment in my life where I don't remember I'm black.
Hello. Well, what about me? The girl named Ebony. And I have to give my mama a whole lot of credit because in naming me, my mother also wasn't quite sure that the world was going to be ready for me by the time I hit adulthood with the name Ebony. So she gave me a very white middle name in case I needed to use it. So very forward thinking, mama. I appreciate you for that. Fortunately, I haven't needed to do so, but that's a very real
No.
consideration that parents have had to make. And I'm so glad too that you brought up the hair thing because some of our listeners may not even realize that there is this thing called the Crown Act, this legislation that has had to be passed.
It wouldn't be another civil rights act, would it?
Oh, right. That I have the right to wear my hair however I want to wear my hair. And I don't have to worry about getting fired from my job because I have chosen to wear my hair naturally or in what you would consider an ethnic style.
Yes.
Imagine that. I mean, these Crown Act legislations have just recently happened. Like, this isn't something that happened 30, 50, 100 years ago.
Right, this is recent.
This is recent.
Yes,
We are still
like a
fighting for
decade.
our right to wear our hair however we want to wear our hair to work.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, we have to recognize that this is a real mental health concern for Black folks. And I would say not just Black folks, but because this is a podcast for Black folks.
Right, so any other
This is
culture, yeah,
right. It's very real for us. And we've been fighting this fight for a very, very, very long time.
exactly,
And so, how has this shown up for us? It's shown up as us being depressed.
that part.
Right? People dealing with fatigue, not wanting to go to work, changes in their appetite, not being able to focus on the things they need to focus on.
Yes, that part, and again, the exhaustion of, like, reading, and rereading, and asking your homegirl to proofread your email before you even hit
Hello.
send.
Right. That part. I've had that happen with me several times.
Yeah, so it's also very
Yeah.
time consuming.
Mhm.
To
Yeah.
figure out how not to be offensive and in a world that is created to be offensive to us. We're always in a fight or flight response, fight, flight, or
Yeah.
freeze
Or freeze. Yeah.
because again, you're like, okay, I could just quit. I could fight back, or I could just sit here and do nothing
Mhm.
you know, to preserve myself. And then I would add another component to it that even when we're trying to decide how we're going to respond in these scenarios, right? We're also thinking about, well, many of us have the tendency, as our forefathers and mothers did, to think about the people that are coming behind us. So
Right.
at some point, we got to decide: are we going to carry the mantle and be like, it stops with me? That's
Mhm.
also exhausting.
Yeah, and especially if you're, like, the only Black person in your company, right? Or especially if you're, like, at a
Yeah.
C-suite level or upper level management, and it's like, "Okay, I can't say the thing that I wanna say because I have to think about the others behind me and whether there's gonna be an opportunity for them because of how I respond in this moment."
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that weight is also a burden that we bear that other
That
folks
other
don't have to
folks
think
don't
about.
bear, right? They don't bear that responsibility. Absolutely. They
Yeah,
carry that with us. Yep.
yeah. And then we also deal with the whole social withdrawal too,
Mhm.
whether that's in the workplace where we are just dreading going out, like if coworkers are going out for drinks or whatever, like you don't even wanna be in the space with them because you don't want to be forced to keep pretending after work hours, right?
Right. Yes, absolutely. That's why we don't go to the company cookout a whole lot. And if we
Right.
show up, we bring somebody we know with us, say
Correct.
hellos, and then we dip on out of there
And we did.
quietly.
Yeah. And this happens also at predominantly white schools. I have worked at predominantly white colleges, and I have seen this firsthand. And I've had students come and talk to me about how, there is this pressure that they feel to fit in with the predominantly white crowd, and they don't. And then the white crowd doesn't have an interest in trying to understand the Black kids. And so the Black kids are the ones who always feel like they don't belong. And so they're isolated. So it doesn't just happen in the workplace, it happens at school too. And so we need to prepare our kids for this.
Right. And it's not just college because many of us moved. I know my mother moved into a white neighborhood because
Hmm.
of a lot of reasons. But when you're the only Black kid in regular school, when you're the only Black kid, playing on a sports team or performing in a music or dance recital, hell, we talked about a couple weeks ago when the police pull you over,
Right.
all of the things. And so this is not even a choice, right? A lot of people say, "Oh, well, you're making the choice to do that." No, it's a survival technique.
Survival technique. That's right.
Right, and it's a tool, a survival tool that we have in our bag amongst many other things, but that's one of the key things that in order for us to make it back home or in order for us to progress in society, we have been taught that this is a necessity in our lives in
Hmm.
order to continue to survive the world that's
Yeah,
not set up for us.
for sure. For sure.
All right.
All right. So, what do we have to do in order to thrive, to survive, to live, despite the fact of our need to code shift?
Okay. So, first and foremost, we want to recognize that code switching demonstrates remarkable cognitive flexibility. What does that mean? We are super, super, super bright individuals to be able to do this and to be able to do it
Right.
so quickly and be
And
able
so
to do it
well.
almost every day.
Right.
And to do it in multifaceted contexts, to be able to go back and forth. And again, we say that we do that even at home.
Hmm.
We do it depending on who we're standing in front of, whether it be our parents, our children, our friends,
Hmm. In-laws.
in-laws. We do it all the time. We go to the restaurant, we have a Black server. We interact
Right.
with them in a different way than we do with other servers. And
Facts.
so we do it all the time, but to be able to do it so quickly and so
Hmm.
effortlessly proves how brilliant we are, which is another reason why
Hmm.
they don't want us meeting in rooms by ourselves.
Which is also the reason why the second takeaway is that we need to seek authentic spaces
Yeah.
like Naomi Osaka and Taylor Townsend created, right? Whenever possible, we've got to prioritize our environments. Doesn't matter what those environments are, whether it's school, whether it's the community, whether it's the workplace, we have to create spaces that are inclusive for our folk and allow people to be authentic and express their
Yes.
authenticity.
Yes, whatever that may be. And
Mhm.
and the authenticity varies. So let your people in them be them people in them. Like what
Right.
they show up for in front of you, trust them that that's authentically who they are and let them be able to trust you to be authentic in your presence.
Yeah, because they carrying a whole lot with them.
Right. The same load you carrying, they carrying. So
Mhm.
if they
Right.
want to show up and eat pizza with a fork and knife, let them. If they want to order caviar
That's me.
for the shrimp and grits, let them. If they want a piece of fried chicken with some macaroni and cheese, let them be and stop telling them they need more salad and they like I'm sorry, I digress.
Right.
Person. Um, just saying.
Just let them be, y'all. Just let them be.
Just let us be. Okay. And also we need to shift the responsibility to remember that the
Mhm.
burden of code switching should not rest solely on the individual, right? So any of those who are eavesdropping, you need to understand that true progress comes when you dismantle implicit biases and you
Mhm.
improve diverse representation. Stop saying that we don't need DEI. Stop saying that you don't see color, because all of that is a slap in the face to let us know that you really don't understand who we are, what we
Mhm.
go through on a daily basis.
Right.
Am I saying that there isn't some importance to professional behavior? No, I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that when you understand the background of the people who are standing in front of you, then you're more likely to deal with them with empathy instead of
Mhm.
exerting your own microaggressions or
Mhm.
privilege and arrogance.
Mhm. And whiteness.
And white, oh, sorry, yeah, white, the whitey, the whiteness of it all. Okay.
Absolutely. And just remember, we all we got. As much as people talk about allyship, and trust me, I know lots of white folks that are close to me, right? That do get most of it, right? They'll never fully understand our experience, but they do actively try to understand what we're going through, and they actively try to dismantle systems. They actively try to be an ally. They actively try to be anti-racist. That really is the goal that non-people of color should be working towards, becoming an anti-racist.
Yeah.
And so if you don't understand the difference between being an ally and being anti-racist, then that right there lets you know that you have a lot more work to do. And so we would just encourage you to continue doing that work, because it's not going to be until that work happens by a critical mass of people in this country that we'll see any wholesale changes to things like the Civil Rights Act that benefit not just Black people, but truly all people. Because when you protect the rights of people of color, when you protect civil rights, you protect everybody. You create a system that says that everybody is valuable, not just for what money you can make off of them, but you see that everybody has creativity, everybody has worth. And it's not going to be until our country gets to that point that we're going to see our country ever be great, because it has never been great, because that has never been our experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's such an important thought that you're bringing up, and that the country has never been great. And it's because the inhabitants, or the immigrants, if you will, have continuously raped the land, and
The colonizers.
the colonizers, thank you. The colonizers have come and destroyed the harmony that was on this land. And I don't know if we'll ever
Mhm.
be great until they acknowledge that and attempt to make amends for that.
Mhm.
And then even how you created this capitalist culture, you did it on the backs of stolen bodies. So
Right.
once again, I don't know how you will ever have peace on this land until you make amends and acknowledge that. And so even with that, right, you have embedded in us the necessity for code switching, because you didn't let us
Mhm.
keep our authentic language and culture and all the things, right? We had to assimilate
Right.
into British culture. And
Mhm.
so, I even would want for us to acknowledge that it's not our fault.
Mhm.
It's not our fault that we have to code switch. It has been
Mhm.
embedded in us since we were ripped away from our continental shores. And
Yeah,
that's on them.
that's on them. All right, T. Well, that's the heaviness for today. I don't think I can deal with any more heaviness for tonight.
No. Do we have any tea?
We
I
have
don't
some
know.
tea.
Okay, we want some tea? Okay.
Yeah. So what's on tap for the herbal tea?
Well, I don't know about you, but what's trending on my timeline right now is that Ray J got knocked off
Beep.
the movie Friday, if you don't know what I'm talking about.
Wait a minute. How'd that happen?
So Ray J apparently was in this MAA match a couple months after he said he didn't have long to live.
You said MMA?
That's what it said on People. It said
Ray J that was about to die just a couple months ago?
that one, that him. He said he was about to die. He had heart failure and the flu, I think, or
Oh my gosh.
okay.
Okay.
So he gets in this ring against a YouTuber, Super Hot Fire, at a
It's
live
a weird name.
stream. It's UFC MMA event in Las Vegas, and 30 seconds into the fight, he got knocked out, like knocked out, like Tommy Hitman Hearns and Martin knocked out. First round, so there was no second round.
Wow. Okay, I got it. I got it. So maybe Ray J is checking things off his bucket list. Maybe?
Okay, well, maybe. I mean, I have never ever once put on my bucket list get my behind beat, okay, and be the butt of all memes, but it's
Okay.
his own. Yeah. Yeah, because he did say that the doctors told him he didn't have long to live, and he said his heart had turned black due to abusing alcohol and drugs. And see, this is what I think
There we go.
did.
There it
That's it,
is.
damn straight, right there. He had a drink.
This is your brain.
This is what
This is your brain on truth. Any questions?
That's what I could totally get the ring.
I can take it. I can take
Don't hold me back, sugar. Don't hold me back.
it. And there you have it. That's the takeaway tonight, people.
That's the takeaway. That's the takeaway. Your mind is a terrible thing to waste, and drugs flood in your brain like that scrambled egg. When you all right. Well, thanks for listening,
All right.
people.
All right. Well, there you go. All right. Well, we already know y'all probably going to have questions and comments to share with us. So, you know what? Send us an email or voice note to podcast@enjoylifemoreabundantly.com.
If this conversation helps you, like it, share it with somebody you love, with somebody you don't like. Just ask them to subscribe.
Anybody.
And make sure you subscribe to our podcast and hit the notifications button so you can be notified when our episodes drop. And until next week,
Enjoy life.
and life more abundantly.
Cheers.
Can I go back?